or the white good industry was ready for it. So the entire dynamic, the way the business was happening, the customer behavior, the buying patterns, the way we are pushing products in the market, because most of the business still remains a push business in India. Okay, the product business, we have to clearly accept the push business, and in a push business, demand forecasting plays a very critical role on that. So I would like to open the discussion with my first point about importance of demand planning tools, and just not a tool, do we have the right set of people to work on that? So I would like Rajesh to first take on this and share his insights.
Yeah, good evening everybody. Good to be part of this panel and good to be in front of you. So I think, I think I would put the, in terms of, if you look at it from a point of view of whether tools as well as people, right? I think, according to me, both are equally important, right? And it's, I don't think, it just tools or just, one set will work with it. It complements each other, and it's important to have both, right? And I think from a point of view of, if you look at it from a point of view of tools, right? And I think, historically you have these, statistical forecasts, and again, if you look at the tools point of view, it again depends upon the kind of business you are in, the kind of evolution of the products which you are in and stuff like that, right? And if you look at your traditional forecasting models are all there, right? Whether it's a linear regression models or the time series models, and especially for the established set of products, it works, well in terms of at least getting you the base level of, forecast. I think traditionally, if you look at it, especially from the new products point of view, you typically used to have qualitative tools, right? And if you go by the earlier textbooks, that's what I think people will say. You need to have more qualitative ways of doing forecasts. But I think what has changed now is, there are a lot of these demand sensing, tools which are available, and according to me, that's very important to get a sense of what's happening once you launch a product. How's the, these tools gives you much faster information, which helps the supply chains and the operations teams to react, much faster. And according to me, these tools are again useful also even in the traditional set of products, right? If you, like for example, in the FMCG industry, if you look at it, the salience of some of the channels, like whether it is modern trade, e-commerce, is significantly changed in the last 2.5 years. So, and here again, the demand patterns are slightly different from the kind of, channel, the other general trade channel. So here again, getting the sense of what's happening in the market, and, having that quick understanding of that. And, I think in the earlier sessions during the day, people have covered about AI and ML coming into picture and stuff like that. So those are something which is, which helps you to get a sense of the market, and that helps you to, plan things, much better. Coming to the people, right? And I think it's equally important to have the right set of people. I think today's in day and age, availability of information, availability of data is not a problem, right? And you have tools to, get it much faster. The question is, how do somebody interpret it? How does he use it for effective business decisions, right? So it's a combination of having a knowledge about not just the tools, which is statistical tools and stuff like that. It's also a combination of how do you interpret it and how do you use it for business decisions, right? So I think both are equally important. Having to invest in both of these is important as far as the, the demand planning, process is concerned.
Thanks, Rajesh. Ravi, what are your views? The planning tool and the people, or just one?
No, probably I can cover both. First of all, good evening. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. Since the beginning, since the day started, we spoke a lot about the science behind the effective demand planning. I don't know, probably I have not paid attention, but the art part of it is missing. That's what I felt. So the art behind effective demand planning is equally critical. That's where he brought out the point of people. I would like to cover 2 points on the art and science of it. Many speakers have spoken about the forecasting methods, the tools that are in place, so I don't want to spend much time on it because it would look like a sales pitch from my side. I don't want to dwell on that particular point. But one thing I would like to bring to your attention is the human intelligence or artificial intelligence is very critical dimension in making the right decision. The forecasting models will never be accurate. No matter how robust you make them, will require a little bit of human intelligence, and that's where the art comes into play. Today we have seen a lot of people coming from different industries. We have seen from automotive industry, which is a discrete industry. We have seen people coming from pharmaceuticals, which is a continuous process manufacturing kind of industry. So every industry has a lot of variation in terms of the SKUs, in terms of the processes. So the domain know-how, which is the art, will play a significant role over and above the tools, the forecasting methods, the AI and ML part of it. So the art is really, really the important dimension to it. That's first point I would like to make. And what we try to do is to bring in this consensus-based forecasting, which is a little bit of an additional dimension to the regular demand forecasting methods. What is consensus-based forecasting is about adding the human dimension, human subjectivity on top of the statistical forecasting methods. That's point one. And the second point I'd like to bring on the tools aspect is that in the morning session by Mr. Anirudh Srivastava from Mahindra & Mahindra, he was talking about integrated S&OP and S&OE, right? The tools, whatever tools that you use, if you are using them in isolation, they are good for that particular domain, demand and supply chain planning. But what is the essence of doing this particular exercise? That you want to save a lot of elements in terms of cost, inventory costs, or stock out situations. I don't have to tell you, you're all the experts already. You don't want to get into the situation in the production and transportation. That is the downstream activities where you realize the benefits of planning. So the most important aspect is not just planning, but to have an integrated fashion of executing it in the production process. So one recommendation from my side is to do not see these tools in isolation. Don't just do S&OP planning in isolation, but ensure that the S&OP planning goes downstream to your manufacturing process, and there is a closed loop between your S&OP planning and your manufacturing, so that there is a continuous improvement, there is a continuous feedback coming from your production and transportation teams back to your planning. And that's how you perfect your system as you evolve, and probably that will prepare you to handle various scenarios that you may encounter.
Thanks, Ravi. So a right team coupled with a good tool is the right combination way forward. So Amit, I would like to know your view on how important it is to have collaboration with sales and marketing and just not working alone with a demand planning tool.
Yeah, sure. First of all, very good evening to all of you. Really pleasure to be part of this group, and it was great meeting some of the old friends here. So now I think Ravi was mentioning about the art part of it. So I think there's a lot of art component in managing a sales and marketing team, right? I'm sure many folks here will agree with that. So on a serious note, if you look at the last 2 years, and all of us have heard about this change becoming constant, right? So it has become like a cliche. I would say it has transitioned from change becoming constant to chaos becoming constant these days. So the uncertainty is so high, and things are not going to change. We have to be very clear that tomorrow the constant will become chaos rather than chaos becoming constant. So that's the evolution which we are seeing, and what it has impacted us on 2-3 fronts. One is what we are seeing. Historically, we've been seeing one side of disruptions. Either it will be supply side or demand side. In these phases, you are seeing disruptions happening from all sides, and it's happening across the board. For example, if you look at inflationary scenario, it's not about one item which is getting impacted, right? You're seeing all across all the item consistently having inflationary patterns. So in such situation, collaboration is the only key where you can pick signals faster than earlier. In erstwhile days, maybe statistical forecasting could have taken us a long way. I would say it becomes a good starting point these days. But yes, beyond that, you have to catch the signal from the sales and marketing folks. And to as much you are staying connected with them, it makes a big difference. And that brings in the second part of it, which is the process part of it. On what I have experienced, and in my experience with Kellogg, I can say the robustness of S&OP process, which of course is something which has been there for a while everywhere. We've been hearing in campus, right from campus days, we have been talking about this. But the on-ground execution makes a big difference. For example, we have seen a big consumption shift. Even in the kind of sale which happens to, say, for example, e-commerce. We saw a significant jump in this period. And modern trade, possibly growth was not as great. But the moment now COVID is sort of settled down, you are seeing the reverse trend also. Not to say that e-commerce is not growing. Now these kind of signals if you have to pick, the interactions with the folks becomes very important. Second thing is, we have been again as supply chain folks, I know all of us used to get excited about demand shaping. Now these were the classical times when demand got shaped, because you could supply whatever you could supply, right? So again, that becomes the second means of communication between both the folks which is involved, which is supply chain team and the sales and marketing team. So that said, I would say journey has just started. Randomness and uncertainty will continue. So this relationship will only strengthen, and the art part will start becoming more and more prevalent. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit. So Harish, so how's the collaboration working at Reliance Retail with sales, marketing, and the supply chain?
Well, good evening, everyone. Pleasure to actually meet most of you offline, actually, because I'll cover that in my next questions. Okay, I mean, just to add on to or supplement what Sarji said, I'll tell you basically why do we need, or if you were to step back and understand, if you had a demand sensing tool which can tell you what is the forecast, etc., it is easy. It tells you based on science. Now that's where the art comes in. I think, why do we need to get the sales or the marketing folks buy-in? This is more to understand, like for example, they will actually tell you, is there a deal on any specific SKU, or is there a promo on any specific SKU? Also, in these SNOP sessions, we get to know as to if there is a particular SKU which has been there as a slow seller, how do I liquidate? Now these are the things, if that is coming in, if there is a SKU which is coming in because I need to do the liquidation, then obviously something else has to go out, because our top line is fixed, the sales are fixed. So when we go back to the sales and marketing, that's where I think we call the term, as rightly said, consensus sales plan. And that's very important, because that's the one which goes to the vendor, and the vendor knows this is what we need to supply. So you have a seamless integration between the demand team and the sales and marketing team. And that's where both science and the collaboration kicks in. Thank you.
Thanks, Harish. So we all know we are all sitting on humongous amount of data. So today data is coming from e-com platforms. So distributors are having distributor management tools. You have the POS in the front end, and there's huge data which is sitting with us. And how we use that data in the right way and feed that data to the system on the demand, get an accurate demand forecasting is the key. So my next point is to Mohneesh. So I just want to know what are the common challenges you see in data management and data architecture these days?
Thank you, Amol. Thanks everyone for joining us today. So as per a leading research giant, 67% of the organizations that have embarked on AI and machine learning based product-based journeys, they are faltering. And the prime reason is data. If we look at this, it has three dimensions why data is becoming a problem. The first, in modern day supply chain organizations, data is residing in silos. Silos because of geographies, because of business unit, because of different functional teams are using different systems. So if you look at entire supply chain product stack, it has system of record where your master data resides, where your transaction data resides. Then you have system of planning, where your planning systems generate this data, and that data is used for execution. During execution, your data is further getting generated with latent views, latent features, and hence there is no connection between these disparate systems, and and organizations are finding it difficult to aggregate and rationalize these disparate data sources which are residing in silos. So that's number one. The second dimension is the data that is again residing in these disparate systems. Even if you interconnect them somehow, you'll always find it difficult to rationalize them. I mean, it's not complying with good data compliance frameworks that are available because it's not complete, it's not coherent, the congruency is a problem. The third and the last dimension because of which the problem happens is scale. As Amol only mentioned in the morning, 22,000 SKUs multiplied with thousands of different locations. That's just the network part of things. And then in the process, you generate a lot of data, POS, you have consumer behavior, you have weather. So data is exploding day by day. More so in today's supply chain when, because supply chains are becoming volatile, there is a lot of uncertainty, complexity has increased because customers themselves have induced themselves into the supply chain. They want deliveries faster, same day delivery, in next 10 days delivery. And because of all these complexities, just explosion of data has happened, because of which organizations are failing to realize the true potential of their data sets.
Thanks, Mohneesh. Hari, so what's your view on this topic?
I agree with what Mohneesh said. First point is silos. So I will use less strategic but more operational language to be simple. So when you say silos, let's take an example. What departments do we see in a company? We see sales and marketing guys, we see merchandising, and then we see the actual manufacturing, and then we see multiple other teams. So what happens now is retailer identifies an item with their own identification, then sales team has their own identification, the manufacturing guys has their own identification, and then there is a BOM and so many other factors involved. Now the main challenge, I worked with a lot of Fortune 100 companies over the past 15 years. So the main challenge we see is that these systems do not talk to each other. And then when you try to combine the data, so let's say there is a sales plan for a certain SKU, and what SKU that represents in the manufacturing terms, or how does that translate into purchasing? So there is a gap everywhere, and then even after the actual shipment is done, and something happens in the history, there was a big spike or there was a big dip in the sales, nobody knows why it happened, because it was never measured, and the big dip information is only available with the sales team because they ran a promotion which nobody knew. So these were the main challenges we always face when trying to do demand planning for any of our customers. And another challenge we see is that they do not think that the data, collecting and keeping the data records is very important. A lot of companies which do not have systems, they don't worry about keeping the historical data, keeping the historical orders. So now when we do demand sensing, we need a lot of information, starting with the shipments information, what were your orders, open orders at a particular time in the past, what is your sell-in, what is your sell-out, which talks about actual consumer pattern, buying pattern. So all those things, combining those things is always a challenge. And I think we are trying to figure out now what is that we can do to make it easier for everybody.
Thanks, Hari. So Rajasekhara, you coming from Glenmark and being into producing a lot of life-saving medicines. So what are the strategies you are using to avoid having wrong data?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Firstly, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Nice to see so many people in one room. So, see, it's not about wrong data, right? As was pointed out earlier. Different companies work with different master data, right? That's the biggest challenge what we face as demand planners day in, day out. I've got distributor in a country, Vietnam. He has inventory data in his language, right? I have not found a system which automatically tells me. I have to go tell him, give him a template which he has to fill in the data, right? And he messes it up, and I'm stuck. These are the most common challenges, right? Even before AI, ML and all have to kick in, I need to find help with this data, right? Somebody has to help me to get all this data together, automatically put things together in one place and tell me that these are the relevant codes, relevant products, relevant information what is there. After that, what happens? I'm sure there are a lot of systems, algorithms which work. This is one common problem what we are looking to solve in our organization, right? The second thing is there's an explosion of data, huge amount of data available, right? Internal, external. Inside the company, you have got system of record, system of planning. Data is there. We don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to use it. External, tremendous amount of data is there. What data is relevant for us? This is where the art of demand planning, right? It's not about judgmental calls. It's not about qualitative decisions taking. It's about what is the relevant data for us to use to feed into the system to get that information back to provide a right forecast, right? That's the next level of evolution forecast. The stat forecast, which we have all been used to over the last many years, have reached to a certain level. But now we need to go to the next level. If we don't go to the next level in this VUCA world, we're going to have a massive challenge.
Thanks, Rajasekhara. So, Pavel, coming to you, how you are preparing for the unpredictable future with so much disruptions happening in the business? So, what's the strategy being used to overcome?
Yeah, thanks for the question, and once again, great to meet so many people. This is my first sort of offline event after many months and maybe a couple of years. So fantastic to meet so many people again. To your question, See, the strategies that you would use to do normal demand supply planning, strategically you would not change anything too much in times of uncertainty, and I'll explain to you why. First of all, you have to separate out what you see as short-term, totally uncontrollable uncertainties for which you really cannot do anything except to react to it very, very fast and in the most appropriate way. And then slowly over time, developing the capability and understanding of, if not predicting, then understanding what can be the future uncertainties that I can control and manage. So there the focus is shifting from completely reacting to what I could not predict to at least developing that capability in the organization to do scenario planning, for example. Not many organizations have reached the maturity where scenario planning is inbuilt into the SNOP process. I can tell you that from a few organizations that I have worked for. There is a linear projection of the future, and the whole organization is continuously just running after it. Every month that linear projection might go up and down, and in times of uncertainty that linear projection becomes irrelevant. And then the tendency is to say, we cannot do anything, let's just do stuff and act from gut. Now that is in fact the most dangerous thing to do. What you should do is the exact opposite. Develop the capability to, if not predict, then to at least identify future trends in this uncertain environment. Develop the capability of having very comprehensive scenario building discussions, what if analysis, and that is where the role of demand planning moves from science to art. As you can well imagine that building a statistical forecast is science, but thinking about various variables which are impacting macroeconomic situations in this country, across the globe, is really an art. So this is where I think the evolution and the change has to happen. When it comes to the supply side, the capability is in fact the exact opposite. The supply side, you have to start building the capability of reacting fast to whatever changes are happening in the short term, and in the long term, building that reservoir or buffer that if there are huge variations in the future, then at least I have that muscle, internal muscle, to react to that. So in short, very dangerous to think that because of uncertainty I need to stop doing planning and therefore just focus on day-to-day survival. The exact opposite. You need to in fact focus more on the future, build the capability of scenario planning, and within the physical infrastructure and your supply side, build that agility to react quickly to the changes that you will see, because this is the reality. Things will, I think many of the speakers have said that the uncertainty is not going to go down. If anything, it is probably going to go up. So yeah. I think that building of that internal muscle has to happen.
So a perfect black swan movement is what we call, highly unpredictable, and I think rightly said by Pavel, we need to build capabilities for that. So forecasting, when we say the forecasting, a word gives jitters to everybody because forecasting is never right. So we have a lot of SNOP meetings where we keep on fighting, the numbers are giving, the forecast never match, and forecasts are never meant to be achieved or matched. Okay, it's a forecast is just very futuristic. So coming to Rajasekhara again, back to you, being again from a very critical industry, what if the forecast goes wrong? What are the plan B and C? How you work on that?
Yeah, focus is called a focus because it's a focus, right? Okay, so I think we all are good at, to certain extent, making plans, right? Plan A, plan B, plan C. The key thing, what I've found where we falter is when to activate a plan B. What information helps us to decide should we go for this or not. For example, right, as we were discussing earlier, we also have a prickly heat powder. We also have same issue. If it rains in one corner of the country, demand for certain products will go down, like air conditioners, like prickly heat powders or soft drinks. What do you do with it? Do you hold on till the rain subsides and hope high humidity will helps pick up more sales, or do you act on it and react immediately and move the product around? Taking the example of tail SKUs, what you mentioned earlier, right? So that is a very key element, right? Making plan B is not a problem. We all have been making plan Bs, but when do we activate? What information is needed for us to do that is what is going to be the key element for us to succeed in and making sure the business doesn't falter. right?
Yeah, thanks. So Amit, what are the best strategies to build an intelligent and agile supply chain?
So I'll maybe use the people, process, technology framework to respond to that. So while people part has been discussed adequately, but one couple of things which have become very important is unlike before or maybe early days, investment in the right kind of people becomes extremely important, and it comes from two dimensions. Of course, the statistical part of it and understanding, including the transition which we are seeing towards AI and ML and those kind of stuff which is coming into fore more and more these days. Other is this commercial part of it, having this commercial understand which some of the speakers have called, and I will also equate it to maybe art part of it in terms of understanding the business dimension. So you need a focused analyst who is business analyst and also a statistician, which is a very tricky combination, but that's the ability which you have to build in as a team. If not in one person, at least as a group, the people who are doing the forecasting, they should have that capability. So that's on the people side. On the process side, yes, strength of the SNOP process get tested each and every time these days. So that if that process is robust, what I've experienced is you get a very good sense of I would also link to what Pavel was mentioning. You also do a simultaneous, while you are in a chaotic situation, you are also looking at future and also looking at what is the right thing from a business standpoint in future in terms of forecasting. So that also simultaneously gets built in. Second thing which also becomes important is the demand sensing capabilities which we are having in the system. So whether in the same month, finally we see in business we need cash as well as we need returns. So cash is for immediate. So same thing is demand sensing is for the immediate thing, so that supply chain can respond. So that's the process part of it. On technology, thankfully now we have enough and many tools we can help us do great forecasting and also great amount of demand sensing, and all kind of tools and techniques are there. So I think no organization today can shun away from that. So they have to invest, and that's the only way to go. It's only about what kind of model, depending on the size of the organization, which one can adopt, but that's the way to go. There's no other option there.
Looking at the time we have and respecting it, I would just like to go for the last one. Mohneesh, would you like to share some success stories and best practices?
Sure, Amol. So for best practices, there are just 4 steps. If any organization, if they can follow these 4 steps, they would be able to balance out their supply chain in harmony. The first is, again, as we were discussing some time back, couple of speakers, eminent speakers have spoken about it. Interconnecting your data infrastructure, which is in silos. That's a humongous task, but somebody will have to do it at some point. What is needed is a unified data model template for your demand systems, inventory systems, manufacturing systems, logistics systems, sourcing systems to connect and talk to each other, kind of a canvas of sorts. The second is to leverage intelligence. You have data in the previous step. You need to enrich it further. Add proprietary data sets. Add public data sets that is available. You need to acquire those to build anything on top of it. Third is cognitive automation. So demand forecasting using tools for huge scale is needed, and hence these tools are needed. So automation and scale is needed to augment human intelligence. That's the people component of it. So tools are required to augment better decision making. That's what human intelligence is about. And lastly, collaboration. Without people talking to each other, they can't mitigate risks. They can't take remedial actions in case if a stockout is happening, if an imminent stockout is happening. Planning system can give you in a forward-looking manner that yes, in 20 days out or 12 weeks out, there would be a stockout. But without collaboration, demand planner and supply network planners, they won't be able to mitigate these. What is the kind of impact these 4 steps will give organizations? Obviously, our demand planners, he or she will be able to help minimize these stockouts, help minimize the working capital investments on in holding cost, wasteful activities, so improving the planner productivity, sustainability goals also. What we have seen, if you can forecast better, if your forecast accuracy is higher, you'll be able to produce just as much as needed to fulfill demand, and hence your CO2 objectives, the greenhouse emission norms that's becoming because of the all these climate changes that we are observing, we'll be able to attain those goals.
Thank you. That's all. So, Pavel, any closing remarks from your side?
Just a couple. I was just thinking the other day that I'm sure that over the last 2 years, many CEOs have spoken to their supply chain heads 10 times more than they would have 3 to 4 years ago.
Very true.
And of course, obviously, because of the supply chain challenges that we have seen. So it is not only a challenge, I feel it is a huge opportunity for us as a supply chain community to really use this as an opportunity to, I think, re-establish our credibility and our value to the overall business and to the growth of our individual organizations. I think for the first time, many organizations are realizing the value of a resilient, agile supply chain which can react to many changes, still withstand the shocks that are coming from all sides, and still deliver value to the business. So I think going forward, in fact, organizations and us supply chain professionals who really take this to the next level, we will be creating a huge competitive advantage for our individual organizations. And demand forecasting as a science, as an art, whatever you might call it, is a very integral piece in this whole game. If we don't get it right, then we will not be adding as much value as we can to our individual organization. So we have to get it right, because I see that for the next many, many years, supply chain will continue to be a key focus, will be a key success factor for any organization to succeed in the market.
Very rightly said. It's supply chain and the customer connect which is going to increase in coming decades. Yeah. Thank you, thought leaders, for your wonderful views, and I would like to open for any Q&A if somebody wants to. Yeah, please. Can you?
During this second wave, heavy flu was the first demand in the Glenmark. I also approved petition for one strip at Indore. For that time, I received a call from Indore Press Club Secretary that we require one strip for their members, not for his family members, for their press members. That time I requested to Glenmark team here, and I got the delivered at Indore. So I will request Reddy Saab. He was the member of their war room during this heavy flu distributions.
Thank you very much for the nice words. I think that is a classic case study for the pharmaceutical organization, right? Because after the COVID hit, we were all running helter-skelter like headless chicken, but we were able to focus on repurposing a molecule and get into the market. Sometime in July, we got it into the market, and it really helped the whole society as a whole. And I think that's lot of sense of pride we all have in the organization, having contributed a little bit to the society. Thank you very much for your gratitude.
Now we will go for the last question. Yeah, the gentleman in the white shirt. Yeah.
So my question is to anyone on the panel. So there is an extreme school of thought. There's a school of thought which has this extreme view that don't work on further improving maybe the accuracy of your statistical forecast, because the effort versus the reward for that 1% which you will improve is not favorable. Rather than that, assume that there is a certain uncertainty that will be there, and work on managing your supply chain with that uncertainty. So that could be, I think, some of the points that were brought up, demand sensing, or design your replenishment systems to assume that there's always going to be 30% MAPE. Just wanted views on that, because in an extreme case, they say don't work on it only.
Yeah, I think there are multiple views to this. One of the things I would do is, as a favorite thing for all my customers, I would not only look at MAPE and bias, I would also look at the extreme error. When I talk about extreme error, how many number of SKUs or how much of the volume of the total amount are we forecasting really bad? Like the MAPE is 70%, bias is 20%, right? So how much of those can I move closer to the zero? right? So if it was 70, if I move 70 to 50, that's a lot of improvement for the particular product or category. So I would focus on extreme error along with bias and MAPE. When extreme error reduce, of course, bias and MAPE are going to improve. And then I think for any demand planning tool, it is also necessary that there should be a way for the planner to be able to control the trend, the growth. They should be able to say, okay, I'm looking at 10% growth for a certain item or category. So that freedom should be there for the planner. So that they know exactly what is going to happen, and they don't have the uncertainty is reduced. There is always uncertainty, but it gets reduced by let's say like 1% or with less effort.
Just to, I think it depends upon where you are also, right? Suppose, for example, you have forecast accuracy of 30% or something, then in fact, there is a scope for significantly. But if you are in the 70s or something, it becomes. But having said that, just to add on to other points, I think demand forecasting is just one part of the tool in the entire overall supply chain, right? From a point of view, and I think you have to use that as this thing. You will have to look at all the other areas as well. Like, for example, we are talking about agility in supply chain and stuff like that, right? So demand forecast is one of those. But there are other levers, like, for example, you might want to, keep buffers and capacities or inventory planning and stuff like that. So you'll have to look at various modes and in terms of managing that. But having responded to question, it also depends upon, suppose you're in very good, accuracy numbers, then probably, focusing some of the other areas might give you more value. But for example, when I see it from where I am currently, I see a lot of value as well in terms of working on forecast as well, not just on the other areas per se as such.
That threshold, because there's always hope for improvement.
Sure.
So yeah, you have to look at.
Okay, so we did this in the retail scenario, wherein when you go to the article level and to the store level, we were at 25-30%. But here it all depends upon the first lever there is it a fast moving article, first of all. So there, if you start putting your efforts, what we have seen is if you are even able to get it by 3 to 5%, my working capital came down by almost 3 days or 2 days. So it depends on where you want to put your energy and effort. Obviously, if you do it on the A class item, as I think even today Amol made that presentation, there you will see far-reaching benefits. Whereas if you do it on a tail skew, the management will definitely say, get your supply chain to take care of it. Thank you.
No, I completely resonate with Rajesh and Harish. You'll have to weigh the cost of investment that you have to make into increasing that 1%. Like he said, 30 to 70. If you make that change, what is the impact you're going to have in your gross margin, return on investment, on working capital, so on and so forth. If that justifies it, you'll go ahead and make that improvement. Having said that, there are two ways to plan. The first one is proactive planning. Demand forecasting is a way to do proactive planning, looking into the future. The second is reactive, and you have to work on both. So, like one of the eminent speakers said, demand forecasting, even 1% increment is giving you substantial return on investment. You should go about it, but definitely and fundamentally, organizations should invest into the reactive management and reactive planning-based exception controls.
So, thank you everyone. I think, can you please connect later? We are really running short of time. So I'd request, okay, please go ahead, last one. Yeah, let's.
Hi, good evening. My name is Abhishek and I am representing VIP Bags. My question is not to any one of the specific panelists, so I am directing it to the moderator to get the answer. So a lot of companies still are onto the traditional systems. In India, mid-sized companies, even large-sized companies, many of them have got onto the sophisticated softwares and tools, but still largely companies do it the old way. And there are challenges. So one of the challenges was data, cleanliness, hygiene and stuff. Other large one, I believe, is the change management, and stuff. So the question is, in your opinion, what percentage of the total potential which the tools offer are the companies, typical Indian companies, able to realize because of the issues about, culture and stuff like that? Because, see, you can get few people from outside to do it. I mean, as a employee, you can get little hires, but it's the old people who have to, get into that new role and understanding. So we talked a lot about workforce and processes and all that. So I'm not sure to what level, generally companies can elevate themselves to really harness the true potential of the software. So what in your opinion would be that?
Thanks. What I've seen, the management of the company is really ready to invest on the tech tools. Okay, be it is the MD or the CEO. And you very rightly put, the buying at the level who are going to run that show, okay, is not there. Okay, because traditionally they have been working in their own way, be it the category manager, be it the buyer, or be it the planner. Okay, and like I mentioned in my presentation, believe on the numbers. Okay, there can be exceptions, you can work on those numbers, but if you completely thoroughly want to not accept those numbers and continue working on the old-fashioned way, the investment is going to be zero. You're not going to get any return on investment on the tool. So 2 or 3 steps what we also did in our organization was, when you are implementing a tool, okay, for the initial phase you should have a team from your solution partner in your office who is hand-holding till a level that everybody operating on that system gets a full confidence and a belief on the system. Okay, if I work on this system, I am going to continue getting the same level or a better level of output compared to what I was working in on my old system. That's the biggest. If you don't get a confidence, maybe you implement a tool, 3 to 6 months they work on that tool again, and after 8-9 months you're saying that people are bypassing those tools. So that has been really prevalent in many companies, okay, many Indian companies, as you completely mentioned. But the way forward is, your solution partner has to put a team for the initial 1 year. There has to be confidence. The people operating on the system has to get the confidence on the system. They should see they are getting a better output as compared to what they were doing. And then slowly when the solution partner team moves out, you should have a check, balance and check mechanism, like a weekly dashboard or a monthly dashboard about the usage of the tool and how much the tool has been bypassed. So I think that's the way forward. I think you would like to add something more on that?
That's whatever concern he raised is very apt. And a lot of people have the concern. The best way to address it is, at least what we are trying to do, is to bring in the risk revenue sharing model. That means while the solution implementation partner is there and to handhold you, the confidence in the customer comes from the ability of the particular solution provider to share the risk and the revenue. So there is these new models called outcome-based engagement. That is, if I deploy this tool, if you get this kind of benefit, you should be willing to share that revenue, a percentage of that benefits or the whatever you accrue with the vendor. Instead of a buyer-vendor relationship, we will have a partnering relationship where the risk and revenue are equally shared between both the parties. I think that's the way forward in case you are in doubt. But move forward. Whichever way possible, certainly move forward. Staying there is not going to help.
I think one other important point is, for the guys who are actually using the system, whatever it could be, new forecasting system, it's very important we make their life easier. Right now, if you look at some of the guys, they might be spending 10 hours gathering the data, another 2 days trying to come up with some kind of forecast, talking to all the different teams. Now the main selling point I see it as is how easy we are making their life. So are we getting the 10 hours, reducing the 10 hours of data gathering to an integration? And then are we improving the collaboration process between different departments to be easier? So that is the main buy-in point that we are seeing in the recent days, that everybody who doesn't want to move away from the traditional systems or Excel sheet or their own process, they are actually willing to now move away from that, because they can spend more time on analyzing their forecast for the future rather than doing all the non-value added activities.
Thank you everyone. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Amol sir, for wonderfully moderating this session.